The Polish parliament began its first session by imprisoning two members, Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik. President Andrzej Duda and MPs from the Law and Justice Party have demanded their release, but the current government does not recognise their 2015 pardon. In addition, politicians from the ruling majority mock the dramatic situation of prisoners' families. MPs of the largest opposition party, Law and Justice, spoke about the absence of the illegally imprisoned MPs and the reason for their imprisonment. It was a fight against corruption.
A wasi politycy za korupcję dostają nagrody.
And your politicians receive awards for corruption. Where is Włodzimierz Karpiński, accused of bribery in the European Parliament by decision of Speaker Hołownia? Where are Stanisław Gawłowski, Tomasz Grodzki, Roman Giertych, who are facing serious charges in Parliament?
Na których ciążą poważne zarzuty.
In 2021, Donald Tusk said of Sławomir Nowak, who has been charged with 17 crimes by both the Polish and Ukrainian prosecutors' offices, that he is a political prisoner. Now the politicians of Tusk's coalition do not want to talk about the political issues in the cases of Wąsik and Kamiński. These are people who have done so much harm to other people that other people have been imprisoned as political prisoners, so they do not deserve this title in any way. The prisoners' wives appeared in the same. We are here, where our illegally imprisoned husbands should be, members of the Sejm of the Republic of Poland.
Bezprawnie osadzoni w zakładzie karnym. Dziękuję bardzo.
We demand the immediate release of our husbands, Maciej Wąsik and Mariusz Kamiński. However, the situation of the woman amuses members of the civic platform.
Nie będzie miała pani żadnych...
You won't feel any remorse when you look these ladies in the eye? And why should I feel guilty? I already hope that both men's wives are warm and that they already know how to turn up the heating at home to keep warm. Are you really speaking such words to wives who have lost their husbands overnight, taken to illegal detention? Sir, there are about 68,000 prisoners in prison here, husbands and wives, and the question is whether you feel sorry for all the wives and husbands in prison.
Różnych żon i jest pytanie, czy pan żałuje wszystkich żon, wszystkich mężów.
Panie są...
The ladies are the wives of illegally imprisoned members of the Sejm who have been conducting a hunger protest for a week, and any jokes about it are simply inappropriate. Even her coalition partners criticise the ruling camp MPs.
Wypada takie zachowanie posłowi, taki poziom?
Pewnie by oczekiwał.
Is such behaviour appropriate for an MP? I believe that every person deserves respect, regardless of whether we respect the judgments or disagree with them. I would expect that in addition to this assessment of political activity, there would also be a human one. Was it missing? It's worth being decent, and these are not matters worth mocking or laughing at.
Drwić czy też uśmiechać.
There are also legal matters that require clarification.
Jeżeli chodzi o ułaskawienie...
When it comes to the president's pardon, why doesn't Donald Tusk recognise it?
Tusk go nie uznaje.
We need to ask Donald Tusk why he does not recognise the legal order in Poland at all, because he really does not, and apparently, from Mr. Weber's words, it is clear that Tusk has the support of the European Union, which is proof that the entire fight of the European Union for the rule of law in Poland was one big joke. The knowledge of the constitution of the MPs of the current government is also questionable, as they were unable to justify their arguments questioning the validity of the pardon of MPs Wąsik and Kamiński in 2015 by President Andrzej Duda. There is no time frame in the Constitution. There is a certain practice. But what practice based on what provision of the Constitution? Without any provision of the Constitution. And where is the Constitution? In the case of law, please educate yourself. Will you make law on the basis of case law and not the Constitution? We put it from our heads and from our own heads. And excuse me, from head to toe. This is how you understand them?
Z faktami nikt nie powinien tutaj dyskutować.
A który zapis Konstytucji mówi, że ułaskawienie ma normy czasowe?
I don't think anyone should argue with the facts here. And which provisions of the Constitution say that pardons have time limits? There is practice, there are statements of many professors, but there is a constitution, yes. The Constitution says it clearly. The President has the right to apply the law of pardon. The act of pardon is not limited either in time or in substance, unlike other constitutions in the past, e.g. the April one, where only final judgments were mentioned. In the current state, there is no such limitation. However, the current government applies the law as it understands it.
Problem jest taki, że ułaskawić...
The problem is you can only pardon a person who's been legally convicted. But where is such a provision in the Constitution? But it doesn't have to be a provision in the Constitution. Yes, it has to be. The Constitution is the supreme law. I know that you want to try the other way here, but it won't help. We want it to be legal.
Chcemy, żeby było zgodnie z prawem.
Because you can't say something is prohibited when the law doesn't say so. Therefore, it cannot be said that the President could not have pardoned the deputies earlier because there is no such provision in the Constitution. And the Constitution is the highest legal act in our country. The President himself said that he freed the judicial system from this case. He said so because he pardoned him. He used the provisions of the Constitution. Well, we have different interpretations here. But you can't interpret the law the way you like, as Donald Tusk said. Exactly. That's why I'm talking about what the constitutionalists are talking about. I'm talking about what the Constitution says. And yet, with the Constitution on its banner, the current government entered the October election. Moreover, they also talked about culture many times, and this was definitely missing from the Minister of Culture, Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz, who did not bother to stand up during the national anthem. While two Law and Justice MPs have been locked up in prison for 2 years, there is a continuing discussion in the Polish parliament and media about the legality of this move. If this is contrary to the law, politicians are raising questions about the possibility of the Polish parliament working in a situation when the authorities are preventing two MPs from exercising their mandates. According to the constitution, the Sejm has 460 deputies, while 458 are admitted to the proceedings. More information on this subject was prepared by editor Holdinska.
Marszałek Sejmu wygasza mandaty.
The Speaker of the Sejm is still waiting for correspondence from the National Electoral Commission and complete data from the Supreme Court regarding the expiry of the parliamentary mandates of Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik. Any act adopted by an incomplete panel may be appealed to the Constitutional Tribunal.
W moim przekonaniu mają.
In my opinion, they have parliamentary mandates because the audit chamber overturned the decisions of the Speaker of the Sejm. However, Speaker Hołownia believes that the two rulings of the Labour chamber of the Supreme Court effectively ended the mandates of the MPs.
Drugie orzeczenie Izby Pracy dotyczy.
Firstly, the second ruling of the Labour chamber of the Supreme Court applies only to MP Kamiński. And secondly, it is invalid because there was a previous ruling in this case. We have Article 7 of the Constitution, the so-called principle of legalism. Every public authority should act within the limits of the law.
Organ publiczny powinien działać w granicach prawa.
In the light of both the Constitution and the Electoral Code, it cannot be said that those parliamentarians are no longer MPs. Article 247, Section 1 of the Electoral Code states that the mandate of a deputy expires in certain cases. 1. Death of a deputy. 2. Losing the right to vote or not having it on election day. 3. Deprivation of mandate by a final judgment of the state tribunal. 4. Resignation from the mandate. 5. Holding a position or function on election day which, pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of Poland or laws, cannot be combined with the mandate of a Member of Parliament, subject to the provision. None of these cases include Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik.
Poseł może utracić mandat, ale...
An MP may lose his mandate, but all the conditions must be met. In this case, the loss of passive electoral rights resulting from a final conviction. In this case, we have a statement from the Control and Public Affairs Chamber of the Supreme Court that both MPs retain their mandates. The decision of the Speaker of the Sejm, Szymon Hołownia, regarding the expiry of the mandate of Law and Justice MP Mariusz Kamiński was published in Monitor Polski. The National Electoral Commission did not send us any correspondence indicating the person who will succeed Mr. Kamiński as an MP. Law and Justice MPs alerted the prosecutor's office, considering the conduct of the Speaker of the Sejm illegal. The decision of Speaker Hołownia was illegal because these MPs were acquitted. We are dealing with a violation of the law by the Speaker of the Sejm because he baselessly refuses to recognize the judgments of the Supreme Court. The matter is explained in detail by Professor Anna Łabno, a constitutionalist. The MPs appealed against the decision of the Speaker of the Sejm and the Supreme Court accepted their arguments.
Sąd Najwyższy uznał rację po ich stronie.
However, the Sejm deliberated today without Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik.
Panie marszałku, składam pismo.
I am submitting a letter regarding enabling Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik to exercise their parliamentary mandates. And I would also like to welcome the wives of both politicians, Barbara Kamińska and Roma Wąsik. Thank you for being with us. We are with you. Kamiński and Wąsik's places in the Sejm remained empty. The question also remains whether the Sejm can deliberate in such a situation.
My jesteśmy z wami.
The Sejm is legal and everything operates in accordance with the law and the Constitution. Should the Sejm be in session when the two MPs are in prison? It should not be in session. What does the Speaker of the Sejm say about this?
Czy Sejm będzie obradował w sposób...
Will the Sejm deliberate in accordance with the Constitution? Of course. Here is a list of meetings from 2015 when there were no seats filled.
Od 15 roku, w czasie których brakowało obsadzonych mandatów.
The Constitution states that the Parliament consists of 460 members. If there are both 458 or 460 deputies, any adopted law may be challenged and referred to the Constitutional Tribunal. However, it is no secret that the courts question both the court and the Constitutional Tribunal's rulings, questioning the correctness of the appointment of judges. The Court of the European Union has no power to determine who is a judge in Poland and who is not. Therefore, the question of compliance with the letter of the law is again related to politics. Poland's President Andrzej Duda on Tuesday described Ukraine's refusal to cede ground to Russia in prospective peace talks as perfectly understandable. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Duda restated his support for his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, following stunted peace formula talks to which Russia was not a party. I started my visit in Davos with a meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. It was my first meeting. We spoke about the most important topics, such as the dangers that Russian aggression in Ukraine creates for Poland's security, through the events we've recently experienced when the Russian rocket entered our airspace. Luckily, there was no damage in Poland resulting from it. I told the Secretary General that it shows the clear necessity to strengthen Poland's security, the presence of systems guarding our skies, our airspace. I remind you that we are in the process of building a three-layered air defense and missile defense system in our country, but this system is under construction. Today we need support, and that's what we discussed. A meeting of national security advisors on Sunday made little headway in resolving the Russia-Ukraine conflict after Zelensky's Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak, reiterated Kiev's resolute commitment to its 10-point peace formula. Included in its stipulations are the restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity, including land seized during Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea, as well as the withdrawal of all Russian troops from Ukraine. Duda, one of Ukraine's staunchest allies and a border neighbor, commended Kiev's unwavering position since the onset of the war and said that the conflict would only end with Moscow's full retreat. Russia, for its part, has objected to such demands. Ukraine must win this war, and the victory in this war will be Russia leaving the Ukrainian territories which are occupied today. This will indeed be Ukraine's victory in this war. If the result of this war is different, it will indeed mean Russia's victory. If Russia wins this war, it will continue its aggressive politics, and this is something which is extremely dangerous, not only for Ukraine's future, but also extremely dangerous for the future of Europe. Because if it continues its aggressive politics, then it's practically certain that it will attack again, and we will have another war as a result of Russian aggression. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken promised sustained United States support for Ukraine in a meeting on Tuesday with President Volodymyr Zelensky, despite a riot in the United States Congress on approving the new funding. We are determined to sustain our support for Ukraine, and we're working very closely with Congress in order to work to do that. I know our European colleagues will do the same thing, Blinken told Zelensky as they met at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The Biden administration has struggled to get Congress to approve a $60 billion aid package for Ukraine in the face of opposition from Republican lawmakers. President Biden's request for the Ukraine aid, part of a $106 billion foreign aid package, has been stalled for weeks amid demands from Republicans, including many supportive of the Ukraine assistance, that it includes strict new border security proposals and changes to U.S. immigration policy. Negotiations continue, but the White House warned before Christmas that the United States would run out of funding to assist Ukraine by the end of 2023 if more was not approved, with President Biden warning that if the funding wasn't approved, it would be the greatest Christmas gift for Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Given former President Donald Trump's bid to return to the White House with U.S. elections in November and his previous remarks suggesting some level of trust in Putin, Zelensky has been keen to stress to American politicians the importance of U.S. assistance as his country tries to fend off Russia's continuing invasion. European Union funding for Ukraine has been blocked by Hungary. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Tuesday said Ukraine's allies need to guarantee stable backing for Kiev as questions swirl over the future support from not only the United States but the European Union. Ukraine can prevail in this war, but we must continue to empower their resistance, the head of the EU's executive arm told the Davos Forum. Ukrainians need predictable financing throughout 2024 and beyond. They need a sufficient and sustained supply of weapons to defend Ukraine and regain its rightful territory.